every article, the author has selected or chosen certain words to describe your music. Some people may say it's slightly militant, it's roots, it's conscious music, it's music to make people aware, and it's geared towards the student, it stirs something on a college campus. How would you describe your music?
I don't know, I don't think it's up to me to describe. I think I leave it to other people to describe.
To the listener.
Yeah, because it's funny, I wrote a song on the first album called Scream Out Mellow. And it wasn't a deep song, not from where I wrote it. You know, but then again, somebody might disagree with me. But I met a brother someplace in California who explained the song to me. And the depth he had put in that song was a million miles below what I had written about. So, you know, its art is basically open to interpretation. And I would cringe at trying to describe what it is that I play, or what it is that I try to say. You know, I say what I feel and how I feel it comes through me. It's put out, so it's left to the listener to interpret it.
A few minutes ago, you mentioned certain artists who you listened to back then. I was watching a documentary and they were discussing Merle Haggard and his music and where he goes and the kind of person that he is and the songs and what comes through the song. Is there a place that you go when you sit down with pen and paper to get inspired? Is there something that you do?
Well, you know, I think I may have invented a word called outspiration instead of inspiration. Because I think inspire means to go within, you know. Outspire means to look without. And I tend to write most of my songs by looking without than within. Because there's so many stories on a daily basis to write about. My stories actually might just be very boring if I write about me.
So what percentage of your material is from personal experience, would you say?
Well, I mean, everything is to the extent that I am involved in the picture. But my personal stories have never been told, you know, except for one MPLA on my first album, which is a story about my brother who was killed. But other than that, it's from everyday people and things I see, you know. Of course, it's my twist on it. That might be the only place where the inspiration comes in, or I go inside and put it out in my own way. But for the most part, you know, it's what's around me. Excuse me, my mother used to say this, and I think that's what I've probably taken on in my songwriting. She used to say to me when we lived in the Martian area, which wasn't probably the greatest area to grow up in, you know. But I gotta come back to that. I gotta correct something I said about Martian. But she used to say to me, you have to be like a fish. In it, but not of it. And her explanation was, even when you take a fish out of the water, out of salt water, you still have to salt it. Because it's been living in there, but it's not of what it's in. So, yeah, there you go. I was getting a little carried away, but getting back to the Martian thing. When I grew up in the Martian area, and that's directly for St. Lucia, when I grew up in the Martian area, though financial resources were not great, people loved each other. You know, the lady in front of our house used to sweep her side of the road. The lady on the side used to clean her side of the gutter. And it was carried on. We swept the road. We said good morning to everybody. We loved everyone, you know. And it's sad that it's become that because then people blame it on poverty. I cannot subscribe to the point of view that poverty causes crime. Because in retrospect, I realized I was poor, but I was never a criminal. Neither were the people around me.
With that being said, what role, if any, do you find music play in the role of people's lives, especially with all the banning and non-issuing of visas to performers, and does that say something about music and the role it plays in the psyche of people?
Music can play lots of roles. You know, it can be revolutionary, it can be calming. It all depends on where you want it to go and what you want it to do. You know, I think, though I don't believe in censorship, I still believe we as artists have a certain amount of responsibility, you know, for what we put out there. mean, you can incite a revolution with a song. You know, I remember going to St. Mary's in the morning and listening to, you know, Rastaman Vibration Positive. How could I start my day on a negative turn when that's what I listen to? But if I listen to a thing that say kill, kill, shoot, shoot, I find it difficult to jump out of that, you know? I mean, I have a little boy, and you can't have to monitor, because if you don't realize it, he'll be saying something you said an hour ago back to you. So for people who say, no, well, I'm not responsible, the parents have to take hold. You know, you're not creating this thing for yourself. You're creating it for everybody. So you need to take a certain amount of responsibility.
Okay. Well, I hate to compare people, but compared to other artists out there, many people say you are very successful, and you, in the scope of things, you're fairly new. There's a whole lot more to come. What do you attribute to you being so successful out of the starting blocks? Maybe you are not. That's what we saw.
I mean, I work 24/7, 365, yeah. And I try to put a product that I would want to buy. You know, I try not filling an album just for the sake of filling an album. I try not putting 17 songs, you know, just to fill the airwaves. I mean, I try not writing other people's rhythms, you know. I think if I'm gonna do something that's uniquely me, it has to be uniquely me. You know, I shouldn't steal half of what somebody said. I shouldn't paraphrase anybody else. I should give me. And I bring me into what I do, and I put myself in it completely. So maybe that's what people see. And maybe that's how they responded the way they have. You know.
How do you categorize yourself any? Are you a reggae artist? Are you just a plain artist? How do you?
I think I'm an artist who chooses the genre of reggae to put out the message. You know, because that's what I grew up with. That's what I listened to as a child. But on this album and on previous albums, I've done stuff just me and a piano, me and an acoustic guitar, because I felt the need for it then. I felt it carried the message the way I wanted it to. But I mean, I will dabble. You know, I think it's difficult to ask a dancer to do African all the time. You know, even somebody who is an African dancer. If they're a dancer, they're gonna, even if they're not great at it, but they might try some ballet. They may spin around. You know, you can't ask a brother to paint sunsets alone. You know, so I find it difficult to stick to reggae artists. You know, I'm just a musician.
Do you own an iPod?
Yeah, I own an iPod.
If I should go to your iPod right now, the top 3 songs.
Top 3?
You hit over and over.
That I play all the time. Other than myself.
Other than yourself.
Other than myself. Masters of War by Bob Dylan. Something by Terence Shandawi. And maybe Lucinda Williams.
Okay. You mentioned Dylan twice. Is there something in his music that drives you to say?
I like the fact that Dylan didn't pay attention to the formats of songwriting. You know, Dylan was the first brother who brought a 7-minute song to play in a 3-minute time slot. And they told me he couldn't do it. And he did it because the message was so powerful, people had to deal with it. You know, I like the fact that he's not trying to fit in, but everybody else is trying to catch up with him.
Okay.
You know, probably not as much now as back when. I mean, I was always behind Dylan. Dylan was way before me. But when I caught up to him, I was still blown away by what he was doing. You know, so.
Now, how do you go from Dylan to Lucinda Williams?
Lucinda Williams is an incredible songwriter, man. And this is what I like about her. She has an incredible voice. And she just does her own thing. I like the artists who I think people have not heard about, you know, but they won a Grammy and, you know, she doesn't get her name put on a billboard and flashed all over the place. That's the kind of people I'm digging.
Okay. There was a recent piece on you. I believe it was the Caribbean Life. I think.
Yeah, I heard about it. I didn't see it.
The last issue of Caribbean Life, there was a huge piece, and